brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Within 10 minutes, I have to complete this. Very difficult. Even then, I will try my best to complete it. I will skip most which we have repeatedly discussed those things. First, modernity, westernization, modernism. These things I will leave. I will not discuss this. But one thing I will point out that there are people who view this, or views are that modernism is modernity and westernization are one and the same thing, and there are people that, who have their opinion that there's modernization and westernization. Westernization is not necessary. Modernization is not necessarily westernization. So, but I will discuss this another thing that this modernism in Turkey, how it started, and then I will come back to Sayyid Nursi. Turkey was the first among the Muslim nations to face the challenge of modernity, westernization or reformation in Western lines. In Turkey, during the Osmanian Khilafat, was termed as Nizam Jadid during the reign of Sultan Salim, that is 1787 up to 1807, and Sultan Mahmud from 1807 to 1839. This was the first era of reformation. And then afterwards, it was known as Tanzimat during Sultan Abdul Majid, and the most important phase of reform movement. There was a mixed response to these reforms, which were early started to keep pace with the growing nations of Europe and strengthen the Osmanian Khilafat. These reforms were started by the government, Osmanian government, after realizing its role and the necessity for reform towards the end of the 18th century. In 1774, the year of that humiliating defeat, which ended in the Treaty of Kocha-Kinare, they engaged Western experts for the army. These early reforms were met with the resistance from some sections of the society, especially some conservative ulama and the old army. During the Tanzimat, the reform went deeper. The people began to change not only through schools but also through the great schools of literature. From Tanzimat to Union and Progress Committee, Young Turks, generally we call them, the process of reformation became massive and it lost its direction with the infiltration of the new Western ideals and institutions. And thus the West had the last word in determining the sentiments and the principles that went to the making of Union and Progress. Great. Like the early Ottomans, the Tanzimat were meant, Tanzimat, those who follow this, supported this Tanzimat, were mentally a mixture of East and West. The thinkers and statesmen, even in Western outlook, were not indifferent to national culture. The ideals they offered to empire had its roots in Islamic and Turkish consciousness. Tanzimat, these young Turks later on, according to Khalid Habib, he has written a book, Conflict Between East and West in Turkey. I quote him, the studies, the higher ideals of the 18th and early 19th century West have expressed in political institutions. They had considered those ideals as externalized expression of the best ideals of the East. They therefore met the West on equal footings and developed no inferiority complex. They overlooked the mechanical, industrial, and commercial aspect of the Western civilization, and the West cannot be said to have achieved a definite victory over their minds. The Union and the Progress, Young Turks, saw nothing but the materialistic, industrialized, and commercial West. In that respect, East had nothing to offer. Therefore, an inferiority complex was inevitable. Also, an intense desire to reach the standard of Western civilization as evidenced in their material progress. I unquote. When Badiüzzaman, Sayyid Nursi, was born, the conflict between East and West in Turkey was at its peak. There were generally two trends, Islamists and Westernizers. In general, the West had overwhelmed to a large extent the Muslim world on the whole itself in confusion, and the Western civilization and culture had inflicted a crushing defeat to the Muslim world. most of the institutions of the Muslim world were crumbling. The political, educational system, judiciary, rather, they were all losing its battle against West. However, the process of secularization in the other parts of the Muslim world was gradual, but in Turkey it was unparalleled in their radical and excellent nature. The entire fabric of traditional Islamic life of Turkey was torn apart expeditiously by the leaders of secularization. The dismantling of the Ottoman Empire, the abolition of the Caliphate, and their replacement with the secular Turkish Republic were momentous in the history of the Islamic world. The promotion of the extreme nationalism, the replacement of the Sharia by imposing European code, the elimination of independent ulama class, Islamic endowments, religious schools, madrasa, the substitution of women for Arabic secularism, and Sufi tariqas. These measures were taken to dethrone Islam from public life. Badiuzzaman Said Nursi, originally an alim, a scholar of traditional life, was also later exposed to modern education. He occupied a special place in Turkey and Islamic thought. He led a movement for the revival of Islamic belief and faith and displays a rare combination of integrity, dedication, and clarity of thought. He emerged as one of the leading religious scholars of the high standing who had a wide range of modern science and many areas of modern life and learning. I will give some portion. Risale Noor is his main contribution, which is depth for posterity, which continues to satiate the thirst of many for belief and knowledge in Turkey and outside. Said Nursi had been conscious for several years of the rise of skepticism and materialism and his challenge to the traditional primacy of the belief. He realized the need for a Quranic commentary on which he believed would prove the truth of belief by new methods which blended science with the truth of religion, which will address the mentality of the modern man and confront the dangers of materialist philosophy. The real need of the age, he was convinced, was to save people from auspicious direction in which they were going, to shed the light of the Quran on their path so that they might see the swan that lay ahead them unless they reverted the straight path of Islam. Nursi's eventful life of 87 years embraced the final decade of Ottoman Caliphate and 35 years in the life of the Turkish Republic, and reflected the fundamental change that have taken place in Turkey. So he himself has divided his lifespan, old Aksay Said, Yani Said, Yani New Said. So he responded to modern challenge in a scholarly pattern, and researching the growing effects of materialism in the society. He engaged in the study of Ilm al-Kalam and modern science at the early age of 17 in Beltis and Van under the support and the encouragement of Tahir Pasha, then the governor of Van. Thereby, he was able to gain knowledge of broader problems facing the Ottomanian society and wider Muslim world. It was probably at this juncture that he realized for the first time that traditional Muslim theology alone was unable to answer the doubts concerning Islam that has been raised as a result of growth of materialism, and the study of modern science was necessary. According to Nursi, with the advent of the modernity and atheism, many people either lost or in search of faith, and that only method appropriate today is one which appeals to both heart and intellect. And it seems that Said Nursi's approach was very balanced. He was neither like many traditionalists, but Western philosophy, rejectionists, isolationists, who totally rejected all Western and relied on all indigenous and traditional. Nor was he like those Westerners, or West toxicated, what in Persian called this Garab-Zadeh, who reject all traditional and follow West in all its aspects in order to progress in this world. His approach was like that of other reformists like Jamaluddin Afghani, Muhammad Abduh, Rashid Riza Misri, Allama Iqbal, who sought to delineate an alternative to Western secular adoptionism on the one hand and religiously motivated rejectionism on the other. He sought to respond to rather than react against the challenge of Western imperialism. They, as well as Said Nursi, they attempted to attempted a new reconciliation of Islam and modernity, arguing the compatibility of Islam with modern science and best of Western thought, and providing an Islamic rationale for accepting modern ideas and institutions, whether scientific, theological, political, or constitutionalism and representative government. Sayyid Nursi developed his ideas on educational reform and created his own method of teaching, combining religious science with modern science. He also conceived the project of religious university. Simply, there are many papers who have discussed this. We want to combine this with madrasa, maktaba, and zawiya, the religious, modern, as well as this Sufi tariqa combined. But this project, he could not do that. As far as the nationalism is concerned, he adopted the line of Jamaluddin Afghani on Islamism and Islamic unity. So there are many things which I say. He was a supporter of Society of Union and Progress. He was for the constitutionalism. He was not against this Abdul Hamid, Sultan Abdul Hamid, but he supported for Union and Progress movement, Young Turks movement. There are many things which I think will be difficult to discuss. Plus, the new Sayyid started the silent movement against the force of irreligion. So he embarked upon the task of strengthening the belief of the people, which had been shaken, rather than engaging in the political disputations. There is an Sayyid Abul Hasan Ali Naqvi has written a book, Bidatul Wala of Bakar Lahab, New Menace, that has been translated from New Menace, and it is answer that according to him, a good number of Muslims have lost their faith and they have become apostate. Apparently, they seem like Muslims, but they do not practice Islam. And it should be our concern how to address this new menace. This was Sayyid Abul Hasan Ali Naqvi. Likewise, we will see in Sayyid Nursi, seems that during his stay in Ankara, Sayyid Nursi had realized the situation of weakening of the faith and the belief. Therefore, any attempt to ameliorate the situation politically or to make any effort to push for change will be fruitless and wastage of energy and resources. Given that the policies of new Turkish Republic were based on secular materialism, this new Sayyid undertook to renew the belief of the Muslim individuals, Insan Sazi, to form a community or a group of individuals, Islamic society, rather than to advocate the idea of the establishment of political structure of the Islamic world. I have discussed he has not opposed many movements, Naqshbandiya movement and other movements, but he had cautioned him not to use force against your own people. So he dealt with the irrefutable truths and of belief and demonstrate the logical absurdity of material philosophy, making it possible for man to attain belief so firm that certain that it could withstand any doubts caused by science and philosophy, emphasizing that the Quran was the only truth and reality, and the man's true happiness and progress would be achieved through adoption of new forms of education and theology. It appears that he began to sense the growing need for a fresh exposition and defense of the Quranic message in the face of modern materialism. He opted, Zaman Sayyid Nursi opted Risale-i-Nur in his passive struggle against the forces of irreligion. Therefore, through Risale-i-Nur he answered the attacks made on Quran and the belief in the name of science and Western philosophy and civilization. Thank you very much. I have to cut it short, but you can read.